apologize for the way that I look. I haven't really gotten up and to get ready. Um, I just read several stories about happenings in uh, Colorado. Every time I speak, there's an attachment neurolinguistically. I'm talking in the same uh, horn that I hear honking and all the um all the different levels of interpretation of a horn honking. Um, I'm feeling like really kind of discouraged right now because of all the stories that I just uh read in the news. I usually don't read all that, but yesterday I was out and about and I felt things on high alert. And people have laughed at me when I've said that before, and it's kind of irritating because I don't um I don't enjoy being so connected uh and I can only imagine that it's because of my connection to the FBI and and allegations I've made against certain people in regard to theft of my FBI employee identification badge back in 2000 or 1983 rather. Um, the the stories that the number of I don't want my words to be used as a catalyst or trigger words for any further happenings, but I wanted, or rather needed, to, I don't want to use the word appeal, but I want to reach out to Colorado politicians and they need to be more aggressive in regard to finding a way to set up like a security gating system. Colorado is it should have a lot of experience with a gating system. When I say a gating system, I'm talking about like virtual roadblocks because it was done during the gold rush days. That's how the gold rush was shut down because uh I think through like word of mouth and through the what is now the pawn shop system. Um, because if you think about it logically, I don't have verified information on this. This is just information that I sort of receive and put together because I'm connected to gold mining and stuff like that through my family, the three family names that I've talked about. Uh, um, So what I'm saying is that the gold rush was shut down in the 1800s to keep uh, transient activity, like to contain uh, transient activity, or actually to set up probably both, because bank robberies and all that from way back then. um and those uh instead of having such laissez-faire attitudes, the politicians of Colorado, because Colorado's always been a transient state because of the gold rush and other mining, and unfortunately it's uh, I want to stay positive, because I'm really upset about all the stories involving youth that just came up on my thing, and uh, the I, I think a really good idea for um, contributing to ending uh, transiency, and ending human trafficking is to have DNA testing at birth and fingerprinting at birth, and then the fingerprinting to continue, uh, and as in making that a law in place that a mother has to have her DNA, the person who's claiming to be the father DNA test, all tested at birth, and then fingerprinting uh, of the mother and child. Yes, brand new infant at birth, and then the infant has their because I don't know how much an infant's fingerprint changes due to growth within those first several years. This is what I want for my children. And if I'd had known the direction that things and our lives, excuse me, we're going to go in, I would have, I would have, and this idea had been available to me, I would have, I would have had my children's fingerprints done, and on file in a protected uh, digital file, and then I would have my children's fingerprints on my or redone every year. Not as in, not like, hey, come up to the grocery store and get your fingerprints and da, da, da. Not in that kind of manner, but in a very official manner. Like, okay, here's, you got your social security card, you got your birth certificate, you got your well, you don't have your driver's license yet, but um, uh, your in, you got a car registration, you got insurance, you got a notice of in your mail about your what did they used to call that, the emissions testing on your automobile. here's your 2 year notice for you got to get your children in. It's time to get their fingerprints updated into the protected children's um, fingerprint database. And and as it not being something to be afraid of, or oh gosh, that's a big brother watching kind of thing. I want my children to be protected, and I want my children to be returned to me in this during this very scary, chaotic world where no one seems to really care about anything to me. Or from what I can see. I don't want to say to me, I want to say because I care very much about what's going on and what I hear. And so to act and have government act in a more proactive manner, and in capturing our own children's identifications as much as we possibly can from birth uh, throughout, like the first, I think we would be protecting our children from illegal activity that they might be someone might be trying to pull them into, because I've talked about my first daughter and the experience that I've had in Maryland, and how uh, a particular gang was calling her away from me when we were approaching the house and stuff like that. The gangs move very aggressively, and they're paid to. And I think to have our children's fingerprints on file and to have them updated every other year through like age 14 or 15, I think it's going to discourage our children. And I think it's going to discourage the gangs and others from attempting to pull our children into gang activity or anything like that. Um, and for now, I think it should be on the ballots. Uh, get no offense to the homosexuals. I'm not trying to be, uh, but I'm tired of hearing the homosexual issue when there's so much other stuff going on, and then every time something happens, it's the historical things, the abortion rights. They're the two I've been hearing about. And whether I was targeted because different political groups, they limit your in the same way that the internet, whoever's running internet sites and stores, corporations, and stuff like that. Um, when the internet first came about, it was an open communication system. There wasn't this. Uh, uh, if you were around when the internet first came about, I think you would have a better understanding of what I'm. I don't have the words of how to explain. It's like it instead of being open communication, it when it started to be used more commercially, then everything was contained. Everything started being contained and compartmentalized, and people started being um, pigeonholed and tagging and trigger words and all this, all these diabolical ways that the internet was used instead of just an innocent communication system. Um, what I'm saying is that I think that the FBI should have a database whereby biological parents, one, even such as myself, can go in, be fingerprinted, be DNA tested, and that way, when my children need to find me, they know where they can find me. Um, and like going forward, I think that DNA testing at birth is a good thing, and fingerprinting at birth every other year through uh, gosh, I want to say through 18 years old. Only because your fingerprints don't change that much from what I understand. Or yeah, but even as a reminder to them, this is a reminder of how um how important it is, one, to protect your own identity, and two, to have as much protection as you can against all this very violent and activity, protection from getting involved in being pulled in one direction or another. Um, and I'm not being overprotective. I'm being realistic, and I'm being proactive and looking for ways that biological parents can protect their biological children. Um, we have to protect our biological children. We each have to take a responsibility, no matter, no matter, like, no matter. We have to take a legal provision for our children. And for right now, the youth shelters, there's got to be more federally above board, non corrupt youth shelters until I get to fly on my thing again. Until things in the United States settle down a little bit more. And then the DNA testing continues, but the oh, and it's also going to cut down on uh, pimping, because that's what I've learned, um, that men and even women are doing. in 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 uh in human trafficking endeavors, that a lot of women have become so detached emotionally because they're victims themselves. And this is why I'm saying I would start arresting pimps from the oldest to the youngest. I would focus on arresting pimps from the oldest to the youngest right now. Um, and finding a positive thing for when his or her hookers have gotten arrested, to find and treat the youth in a more positive and proactive, nurturing way than the pimp who's been a pimp for how many decades. And yes, I have a suggestion for how to help youth, as in chronologically 40 years of age and younger, to 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 with a healthy plan to heal themselves of the and part of that plan includes eminent domain of all the sleazy motels and youth who get arrested, instead of pointing the finger and treating them the just not much. The governor comes in and says, okay, you know what, I got 5 sleazy motels up here that I'm shutting down, that really, in health department wise, shouldn't have been open for the past 2 decades. um and discover who the owner is and say, look, here's a check, go buy a house. This is now eminent domain. All of these motels for the next 25 miles both ways on Broadway. This is what I would do. And I would hand those checks, and like what they used to do back in the gold rush days and such, is assign temporary, like, badges, like honorary badges. And then I would give those youth, and I would say, this is a check, you're going with this police officer, and you're going to go take this check to this motel owner, and they've already been notified of how long they have to use this check for to purchase a home, and that's all it's to be used for. And this motel is now eminent domain. And then we're going to grant contracts, government above board contracts, to go in, and those motels that, again, even by health department standards, should have been shut down years, decades ago. And we're going to turn this into a greenhouse. We're going to take this, we're going to fund demolition work, and we're going to demolish some of these hotels that have been historically used for really unacceptable activity. And I would do the same thing with strip clubs and such. And then I would provide safe, comfortable housing for the youth. Comfortable housing where they can recover from what they've been through, possibly since they were children, because most of these youths, they didn't just become prostitutes or drug addicts overnight. There's empty, huge buildings all over the state of Colorado and every other state that can be used for safe from rape, safe from being pulled back in to the muck and mess. And so that virtual gating system that was used in Colorado history to shut down the gold rush should now be used to protect the youth. And there's a lot of chronologically aged adults that need to start standing up and speaking up. Empower the youth to get healthy. And give after you hand the check to the youth person who you've just released from jail after an arrest of a 20-year-old prostitute or drug addict, and you hold them in for 5 days or whatever, and they're and you've arrested their pimp, and now you're holding their pimp for a good bit longer, and you hand that youth that check to take to that motel owner where that youth has been a victim of prostitution, because a prostitute is a victim of prostitution. And a biological mother whose children are victims of child prostitution or drug addiction, that mother is a victim of prostitution. And hand that youth a check for the motel owner. Get out now while you can. Here's the check. Go buy a house. This is now government property. Because those owners of those motels have got to understand that there's a certain amount of consideration for the fact that they were overrun by gangs and cartels and all that stuff. But there comes a time, if they're offered a check and say, we're taking your motel, okay, and we're going to turn it into a greenhouse, and we're going to put all the youth to work, not like whips and chains, not like overworking them, because there's a physical and emotional time to heal. And so I would only allow them to work a certain number of hours a day. I'm going to, at first assessment, I would say a 6-hour day, including travel time to hand the check to the motel owner and the next one, and the next one, and the next one. And then um, and focus government money on demolition of those motels and rebuilding and thinking about the environment and giving youth a real chance to live lives free of and be on alert for those who have used aliases and are so very skilled at living on the run. And I'm talking about pimps now, and and the ones who have had freedom to run from go from have gone from state to state and country to country, and this is cartel uh, level. Use the word cartel as a vehicle to as a in the opposite direction. And provide the public and the concerned public with better information. The Amber Alerts that come up on my phone are only as useful as the respect and attention that I'm giving when I make the report. If I'm constantly treated like a crazy person, just whatever, because the police officers or the governor hasn't looked out his window and taken any responsibility for the activity that has gone on in the state that he